it's time for another one of our Meet the Maker Artist Talks. This is a chance for us to talk with the artist in the gallery space while their work is all around us. We love to do these because it's a way for us to talk about the hows and the whys the artist made, and meet the working artists and break down that barrier between creator and the general public. Today we're in the third floor East Gallery, and we are with Robby Melvin and his show Volume of Movements. So
thanks, man. Glad to be here. Well, my name's Robby Melvin from Birmingham, Alabama. I'm a young artist, I think, because I only started painting about 5 years ago. Sort of fell into it kind of accidentally. And yes, I found that it's the only thing I want to do now, is just put things on canvas. I was a chef, worked in food most of my adult life. And so I was accustomed to having empty spaces and putting things on that empty space that would have, color, texture, depth, composition, all these things. And I guess it was right around we were into the pandemic a bit. And like most of us, we're all hanging out at home or maybe to ourselves a lot. And I found myself reading more art books, watching art documentaries. And for the first time in my life, I was not making something with my hands. Because I'd segued into a different career in the food world, but something very different. I was no longer cooking for a living. And I was kind of going crazy. I'd found myself sitting at home, just literally wringing my hands. I was like, I gotta do something. What is going on? And I realized real quickly, there was a massive void of just not making something. And I was talking to some friends, a couple of artist friends of mine, and one suggested that, well, maybe you should start painting. And at that time, I was like, well, that's the craziest thing I've ever heard. And I don't know the first thing about it. So she was very gracious and gave me some materials, some little canvases, some little pieces of wood, and I kind of went from there with it, And I was terrified to paint on anything much bigger than this little square right here. And it just kind of, as I began to just sort of mine myself, it just started coming out, and it keeps coming, thankfully. Yeah.
Well, to go back a little bit.
Yeah.
We discussed before about the principles and elements of art. Which,
sure.
I went to art school when I studied that. Did you go to culinary school?
I did not. I didn't go to culinary school or art school.
But you're still using the term. Those terms, and it seems like no matter what the medium, a lot of those things, just composition, like will
100% translated completely. Which is, as I kind of dove into it, it all started making so much sense. That this could be what I needed to be doing for myself to fill this creative void, and this maker void. I wasn't making anything. I was blessed as a young man to work with some great chefs who taught me, probably I can only guess, similarly to how an art professor may teach his students. And those things started just translating even more and crossing over as I began to put things on canvas and on pieces of wood. And I'm not saying it made it easier, but I understood it.
Yes, it was a language.
It was a language I could understand, exactly. And, I just started doing it. Much like when I started cooking, I'm going to start cooking. At a young age, I had to have a job. Got jobs in kitchens because it was fun. People were kind of weird and crazy, kind of like myself at that time, and it just sort of stuck. And so it all just started making sense, those two things, the art world and the culinary world. So now I've sort of mashed them together. It seems to be working pretty well so far.
And are all these on canvas, all the ones that are here today?
They are, yes. All these are on canvas. I do paint.
What attracted to you about canvas as a medium? Because I don't use it that much. But you said this other artist gave you some.
Well, a good friend of mine, Deirdre Lewis, is a great artist in Birmingham, and she paints on wood. So when she had me come over, she said, hey, come over, I'm going to give you some things to get started. I didn't know what that meant, didn't know what it was. In my mind, I was thinking a little toolbox with watercolors or something. I didn't know. Well, when I get there and she's like, hey, you need to pull around back. My husband's going to help you get it into your car. And I was like, get what in my car? And he cut all these sizes of wood panels for me. So that's kind of how I started. And then I was terrified of canvas. I was like, oh, wood, it's rustic. It just felt more natural. But then as I began to get a little more confidence, I started moving into canvases, and I love kind of odder sizes. You see, these are very deep. But yeah, I just sort of, that's really when it kind of started making more sense, the food piece and the painting piece. I could say, wow, this canvas is white. I'm gonna put some gesso on it. It's gonna get whiter. Now I have even more of a surface, much like a plate, to put something on. So it just kind of like, it's so simple and elementary, but it really just, it ignited something in my mind.
Yes, but it's where did you even get the knowledge to put gesso on a canvas? From watching video, you said you were doing some.
I'd watch some videos, and I was actually I went into an art supply store in Birmingham, and I was very bummed out because I had just ruined some of these panels. And I was like, man, I guess I'm gonna paint over it. And they're like, hey, what about this gesso stuff? And I was like, what? And I was like, oh, you mean this can be, now I use it like the white and the one behind you, that is gesso. I love the texture of it. I love it. So it's more of a brilliant white. So yeah, I learned that just by happenstance, making a huge mistake and looking for something besides paint to cover it up to start all over again.
And I really do enjoy the textures that you use. And I know some things there's, obviously it's been done with a palette knife, some have been done with a brush. What are your tools that you've kind of gravitated towards as you've been discovering all this?
Right. I've gravitated towards everything but a brush, really. I will use brushes maybe to put a base coat down or something like that, but mostly I use like this particular piece here. This is a palette knife. This was a huge mistake when I first made it. I decided I was gonna go away from acrylics and try out some oil paint. Didn't know anything about oil paint, Started playing around with it a little bit and quickly just messed up this entire canvas. And I was like, man, what am I gonna do here? And then I was like, all right, well, oil, it's oil-based. I come from kitchens. Last time I checked, degreaser can get rid of oil. So I coated this whole canvas with degreaser and wiped it down, and it created this crazy little patina underneath and some texture. So then I knew what I wanted to do with this. I had these different tubes of pink paint. They were almost out. So I cut the tubes and opened them and used them to get the marks here. Palette knife here. So I guess the long way of answering your question, I like to use anything but a brush. I've used cut pieces of air filter. I use the brushes I do have that maybe get older and caked up with paint. I've even taken scissors to them and sort of cut them up in pieces, just to try to create anything that wouldn't look like a brush stroke. But I love using everything but a brush, honestly. Palette knives are kind of my go-to, but yeah.
And you're primarily non-objective, non-representational. So no figures, no objects, no just mark making.
Just mark making right now. Yeah, I've delved into so I got a new series I've just kind of finished back home that it delves into a little more figurative work. But yeah, right now it's just a lot of the mark making and just when I approach anything, like when I approach this, I saw the texture. I could see it. I kind of could feel it. I knew what I wanted it to be. How I was going to get there remained to be seen. That's the great unknown. I just sort of jump into that pool.
So you work straight onto the canvas, intuitively, no color studies beforehand, no...
I do colors. That's the first thing that comes into my mind. With all these pieces here, the colors were the first thing that I sort of started seeing on this, empty canvas. And then I just sort of go from there. I have some sort of a idea. Sometimes I'll draw some things out of what I want the marks to look like, but
basic thumbnail sketch.
100%. But without fail, that completely goes out the window. Sometimes after even the first stroke with a palette knife or the paint tube or the old beat up brush or whatever the happens to be I'm using at that time. And then I'd sort of begin to see it, take what's in my mind's eye, and I see it in a very different way, maybe a way that I feel is going to work better. Much like when I would, build a plate of food. I would get started, oh, wait a minute, let's move this here, this at 3 o'clock, or this at down here, and next thing you know, it's something completely different than what I thought about, but it's sort of what it was supposed to be. At least that's what I'm choosing to believe,
I think a lot of artists, myself included, the number one thing to deal with is knowing when to stop.
Oh my gosh.
Some minimal pieces and some with more layers. This one seems, this does not feel overworked at all.
Right.
Does some of that come from culinary? Like, it seems like you might
completely does. Absolutely. As we were talking earlier, I said, for me, less is always more. And I had a chef tell me, God, so long ago, it's not, I'm probably going to not get this quote exactly right. What he said to me was, it's not so much what you're doing, it's what you're not doing that's going to make this dish great. It was Frank Stitt that said that to me one time. And I was like, wow, okay. So I started emulating that practice into all my culinary ideas. Same thing with the painting. I can sort of feel like, all right, wait a minute. Now, plenty of times I've gone too far. But I try to listen to that voice and realize that, okay, well, less is a little more, and maybe it's not so much what I need to be doing as to what I don't need to do for this to feel complete and just kind of fulfill the vision that I still have or still holding on to, or the vision that's developing as I'm working through the piece.
And do you mix your own colors, or have you?
I don't. Something a good friend in Birmingham just mentioned that to me, and I'm going to begin doing that. I've got a couple of artist friends who are mixing their own colors and making their own pigments with plant-based things and even soil and whatnot. So I want to get into that. That's something I'm very interested in.
It's like I know I've got my certain ones in the tube that I love.
Yeah.
And then some I love color mixing, and sometimes I was just curious. A lot of things that I've gotten in my work comes from me having gotten stuff given to me.
Sure. Oh yeah.
I like this, and I know that can determine a path. So it's
100%. I want to get into that because sometimes I feel like I see these colors that I can't seem to find. And maybe that's what tells me I need to start dabbling with that and just see where it goes.
And you're doing acrylics and oils and some gouache on this one?
That's right, some gouache on some of these. This is acrylic and some oil, the black being the oil here. And of course the oil that I had to wipe off of there, which was quite a task. But yeah, mostly acrylics. I don't use oils a ton. Mostly acrylics, gouache I'll use. I love to use gesso as more than just something to treat a canvas with. And there's so many different colors of the blue on that one is a grainy gesso. Well, it was a grainy gesso I tinted with some blue paint, and then more of the grainy is the big mark on the front of that. Yeah, I don't deal too much with, I like to use oil pastels. The one behind me here is done with a lot of oil pastels and pieces of broken paint tubing and whatnot, but I'm kind of afraid of oil paint, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I need to fix that,
well, I mean, that's one thing I think, like going back to culinary, it's like you realize that's like, oh, if I'm cutting this thing, I need this knife. This knife works with this. So you learn your tools, and it's like what you're trying to accomplish. Gouache is going to be the best thing for a lot. So it's like I think it's wonderful, because it took me a while, because I was like, oh, what's acrylic oil? It's like, oh, when I want to do this, I use this, and then so but it's also kind of unique to everyone's language, how they use them.
Yeah, and I think I'm still developing that language. I love that you use that term, because I'm still very much developing, learning how to speak it for myself and how to speak it forth onto the canvas and to those who see it and whatnot. So.
Well, speaking of language, these are non-representational works, but they do have titles.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you title?
I title most of these here, I title most everything kind of after the fact. I don't ever go into it, oh, this one's going to be called And Then Stares to You. It's something that kind of comes to me as I'm completing the piece or halfway through. And a lot of these titles are snippets from things that I've written. I was in creative writing for a long time, and it's just like both of these are just lines from some poems or some short stories, some story I was writing, essays. I kind of pull from that in a sense. I'm not sure why I decided to do that. It's just kind of what, like for instance, on both of these here, as I was at a certain point, I just was, something I did reminded me of a line I had written. And I was like, oh, well, suddenly stares to you. And wait a minute, this kind of looks like stairs. Okay, let's go with that. And then the one behind you, with diamonds we ceased, was something I had written. And as I was at some point of completion on this one, that line I remembered it. And I was like, all right, that's speaking to me as I'm involved with this piece. surely that's the title.
And when they come to you, will that kind of steer the piece in a direction that maybe you hadn't thought of initially?
Not yet, because I'm usually literally at a point of sometimes fully completed. I'm just looking at it, thinking, all right, well, what should I title this? It hasn't steered anything yet because it kind of comes so late in the game, so to speak, for me. But I'm going to be mindful of that. That could be interesting to kind of think about.
It's very exciting. I think the mentality you have is wonderful because often, as we get older in any field, the excitement and the curiosity and the let me see where this takes me, let me see what this does, we lose a lot of that along the line.
100%.
So I think it's great that you still have, and I try to keep that. I consciously try to keep that.
It might be my favorite part of my process and my practice is just, having those moments where I am realizing something or learning something, getting excited about. I'm so excited about what I don't know because every time I'm working on something that becomes abundantly clear, the things I don't know and trying to figure those out and sort of just listening to, what's going on in my head and where the piece is going, that sort of opens that door to be excited and to learn something new. I mean, like I'm just getting started. I know that I have.
Do something the right way, though.
I don't. I've found a lot of freedom in just not knowing. So much freedom in that. When I went through a period, I guess a couple of years ago, where I was thinking about it too much, thinking about, I've got to learn this to do this properly, and everything I put on canvas was very disingenuous. It just didn't work out. So I kind of 86 that thought and just sort of really re-embraced the fact I don't know and the freedom that's given me, and to try to, educate myself as much as I can, but just keep that freedom alive of just not knowing what the hell I'm doing a lot of the times, but listening to that voice in my head and where it's taking me, where one mark's going to take me. I'll listen to that and just kind of go from there. So.
And do you have multiple pieces that you're working on at once, or do you see one piece through to completion? And how many sittings do you?
Well, it used to be when I first started, I've got to finish this one. But as I've fully realized my adult ADHD is just exploding, I've got now where I will work on 2 or 3 at one time. My studio is outdoors, so it's easy for me to sort of have things around. And if I'm finishing up with some pink here, I may see another one. Oh, well, I kind of like that mark. Well, let's try it in, I don't know, cerulean blue, or let's do this or that. I find I work better when I have 2 or 3 going at once. And they will be finished at different times. I just finished a 3-piece series that somehow it all kind of came together at once. I had them very small 24 by 24 pieces. And I literally was working on all 3 of them at once. And it kind of felt good. I just sort of went with that, and I like them. It kind of worked out somehow, But I feel like I work better when I have a lot of different things going at once.
Well, before I forget, if we have any questions here in the audience or online, we'll go ahead and get to that now. Do we have any questions here or online?
Online, we want to ask, and you already mentioned yes, but you're curious to the extent that your art influences the presentations when you're in a culinary class.
Well, it's funny, it's kind of reversed a little bit because I'm not in too many culinary mindsets these days. I'm sort of out of the kitchen, but that culinary mindset informs the art more so than the art would inform anything culinary, if that makes sense, Sure. Is that what they ask? Did I get that wrong? Okay, yeah.
But it just popped something into my head about the relationship of the two.
Yeah.
When you're creating a plate or when you're creating a painting, are you thinking about the observer, and are you thinking about how they're going to take it in, or is it just how you want to create it? Do you take the observer into account?
I don't. And it's funny, I'm glad you bring that up, because it made me think as I was just thinking about all of this one day, like even in the height of my culinary career, yes, you want to present something that the guest, the diner is going to love and enjoy. But at the end of the day, I have in my mind how that needs to be. and it's sort of up to them whether they like it or not. Chances are they're gonna like it, but it's I kind of think about it. I don't think about it so much with the art, the end result. I went through a period where I thought about the end result too much. Like, well, I wonder if Robert's gonna like this, or if Greg's gonna like this, or if a lot of are they gonna like it? And it screwed me up. I would lose any inspiration towards the piece, or any of the ideas I had just seemed to like float away when I started thinking about the consumer or the viewer or someone who walks through here. If I'm worried about that while I'm in process, to me, for one, it takes a lot of the fun out of it. And secondly, and probably most importantly, I want it to be genuine, because all these things are very personal to me. Now, if I start trying to please someone else, as opposed to, that's going to kind of tarnish and misdirect my vision, whatever that vision may be. It's kind of where I've resolved with that these days.
That is a breath of fresh air.
Oh man, but again, all that comes from me just really not knowing. You know, I just know what I feel, and I know what it means to me to be able to create. You know, that's enough on most days. You know?
Well, this is such a wonderful exhibit.
Yeah, thank you so much.
We will be today is Wednesday the 19th. Yeah. We will be having open studio night Saturday the 22nd.
Yeah.
So you will be here.
I'll be here.
Third floor East Gallery. If
That's
anyone
right.
wants to come from 5 to 7 p.m. and talk with Robby about his artwork and go a little bit more in depth, we would love to have you. How else can people keep up with what you're doing?
Well, I'm beginning to work on a website, but right now just my Instagram is where I keep all things art and what I have going on, new pieces, old pieces, shows like this, upcoming shows. Yeah, my Instagram is the way to do it, Robby Melvin Art. So website on the way, maybe, I don't know.
Saturday, definitely.
I will be here.
Yes.
Can't wait to see anyone who comes, it'd be great.
Well, any other questions? Yeah. All right, well, we'll go ahead and call that a wrap.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, man. It means a lot just to be here. It's good.
Hopefully we'll see everybody on Saturday as well.
Thanks.